we put an offer in, they accepted it. I went home and I'm selling things at home, and I'm buying a piece of property here in Costa Rica, and I'm like, okay, what I don't really know what I'm doing. So
Okay. So you go. I get it 100%. Hey, welcome to Expat Diaries podcast, where we are here to kind of help with the journey of you considering moving to Costa Rica. And what does that look like, feel like, taste like? What are the experience? So we interview real live people who've already made that move. And today I found Darren. And Darren and I have already had a conversation and chatted about several of the things that inspired him to make this move and the experiences that he's had along the way. And so we just want to share some of that with you. So welcome, Darren.
Good morning.
And just so that y'all know, Darren was very patient, waited on me because I was about 6 minutes late. So I appreciate your grace for that. And so Darren, like first thing first, tell me about your very first visit to Costa Rica, where you came into, why you decided to even come here for a visit. What was that like?
Okay. So I think my first visit must have been 4 or 5 years ago, before COVID, obviously. And I'll be honest, Costa Rica wasn't really even on the map. I've been an avid fan of Mexico,
Me too.
and been going to Mexico for years. And I just wanted to try something different. Came down here, and the feeling was so different that I just thought, wow. I mean, I'm getting that, that Latin culture, but it just felt so different.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really know how to describe it.
Well, for me, like Mexico always felt a bit hectic and frenetic, and I felt like a product, right? You know what I'm saying? Like I was the product that they were all. And I don't want to be disparaging Mexico, because there's some lovely parts of Mexico, but most of the places that people end up going to visit, you are the tourist and you're in a touristy area and you are the commodity there. And I felt like that. And when I came to Costa Rica, I felt like, so I grew up in California and I felt like home 1975, that was the feeling that I had, like I was back in California in 1975.
Yes, I've done a little time traveling back in time myself since I've been here. So, and not in a good way, but I do appreciate the 70s. From what I can remember, I won't even talk about the 80s because I don't remember the 80s at all. So
that was a time, huh?
We'll just skip those. But I know what you're saying, and it's just I don't feel like I'm such a target here.
Right.
And I think that's the big
word. That's the one.
I think that's the big thing, right? I can go to a local restaurant. I can go down the street. I can go to the beach. I'm not being targeted and propositioned and pestered constantly, I guess would be another way to put it. And I like that. I have this very casual freedom here that just doesn't exist in Mexico.
And I think the feeling of simplicity is probably overwhelming, right? So we just have to go. We've gotten our lives so layered with complexities and really complications of the things that we think we need. And then to come back to a simpler time and strip it all down can sometimes feel like, a detox or withdrawal from all of that junk. So you came pre-COVID as just a vacation, or did you stay an extended time?
Well, it was an extended vacation. I try to avoid North America during the winter months for many a good reasons, since I'm from the Pacific Northwest region of Canada. So, we get 8 months of rain, and I try to spend at least 3 months of it not there. So came down, rented a car, which became extremely expensive very quickly. So I bought a car and I traveled around the country for 3.5 months, went back home, and then I guess COVID hit, and it was like, yeah, I think I'm just going to sell my stuff and leave.
It was, I'm telling you that had I started my podcast pre-COVID, it would have been different because I've been coming to Costa Rica for over a decade. And I can tell you that the reasons why I've been talking to people all the time. Why did you do that? Why did you make the move? What was that like? And post-COVID conversations are different. Like people were like, nope, I'm done with this crap. I'm not doing this anymore. You're never going to tell me, X, Y, and Z. And I'm not going to be part of this. I think they got so disenchanted. Some people got so disenchanted with their situations in their home countries that they were just like, I just can't do this anymore.
And I think that sentiment is continuing to grow. I know I'm not going to get into the politics of it, but right. I feel the same. And I've run into countless people who are in the same. They're moving to Costa Rica. They're moving to Panama. I have a couple of friends. They moved to Mexico. I've got another couple. They've gone to Portugal. So there just seems to be those of us that can are.
Yeah. And good for everybody, because first of all, you could have before too, but I think that the disenchantment wasn't there. And for us, like for my husband and I, like it's not even about that for us. We've been looking since we got married 19 years ago. We got married in St. Martin, and we're like, man, we just want to live this life. But I knew I didn't ever want to live on an island. I can't imagine just being stuck on a rock in the middle of the water. As beautiful as it seems very isolated. And so we knew that it wouldn't be St. Martin, and we traveled to several different countries trying to figure out where it would be. And when we came to Costa Rica, we really weren't even interested in it. We were just like, let's just go to Costa Rica for a vacation. I grew up in California, and I didn't really want to be in the Pacific. Like the Pacific Ocean held no allure for me. I really wanted to be on the Caribbean somewhere. It's beautiful, it's clear, it's whatever. And but I grew up in the middle of California, and so the Pacific was always cold. Like getting into it was like getting into a cold plunge. That water was always frigid. And so whenever we rented a place, when we came down to Costa Rica, we came to Garza first over in Guanacaste. And I was really I was literally pissed off that I couldn't find a place on the Caribbean side to rent, and the ability to get there easily. Like it was a little complicated. And so I was like, fine, we'll be on the Pacific. I mean, that was literally my frame of mind. Whatever, we're going to be on the Pacific. We'll just have to make do. And then it was just so beautiful, and the water was warm, and every beach was different. And then we just fell in love with it, and I didn't expect to. And so we weren't considering it when we came down for that vacation. We weren't considering it as one of our options until after that visit. And then I was like, oh, now I have to explore this entire country. So it's always been on our agenda to be in a warm location, and the feeling of Costa Rica for us is really what did it for us. Like there's just no way to explain the way that you feel whenever you get here. So you started in Atenas, right? That was your first trip, was in Atenas?
Yeah, well, we flew into San Jose, and we had some people that we knew in Atenas, and we stayed there. Beautiful little mountain sort of community. Probably got the best climate from what I've experienced of the entire country. Great little community, really. But that was the base that we worked from, and then I had to go and explore, and I had to check things out. And like you, I had this great desire to be on the Caribbean coast, right? Being somebody who's, I've been on the Pacific West Coast my whole life, and right. Yes, I've done enough cold plunges, so I'm done with that. And I really wanted to do. But it is so difficult to get to that side of Costa Rica. I mean,
it is. There's
literally one road that gets you to the East Coast. It's a very undeveloped part of the country,
which is weird. Like all the big cruise ships come in there.
The cruise ships are going there. It's the busiest seaport that they have out of the two ports, because right. There's another one in Caldera, which is on the Pacific side.
Mm-hmm.
And yet it's not an easy part of the country to get to.
In all of my years, I've never been over there.
I was there, stayed for about 3 weeks, and it was just a feeling of isolation. And I think it was because of the fact that might as well have been on an island. There was one way in and one way out. And unless you owned a plane, and I don't,
Not yet.
unfortunately, I don't have one. So yeah, I just felt really isolated and closed off. That was kind of my feeling. And spending the rest of the time throughout the rest of the country, it gave you a sense of freedom. You could jump in your Jeep and drive down the highway and, hit a different beach. And
yeah, for sure. So, so after COVID, you came down a couple of more times to discover where you wanted to be, or you just already knew?
No, came down and did a little exploration. Yeah, we drove around, but when you're driving around and you're on vacation, you're not really paying attention to anything. I don't know if that's right, but I was more concerned about where I was going to have dinner. Okay. Finding good restaurants was actually more of I wasn't really thinking about a place to maybe move to or anything like that. And once I got to Hako, I figured that's it. I've reached the end of the road and I don't need to go any further. However,
you must have found a good restaurant.
Well, I found a couple, but and I still go to, when I need a vacation from the life I'm living, which is a vacation, I go to Hako.
Nice.
For vacation from my vacation life. But yeah, so got there and then decided to go and check out Panama. Well, in doing so, drove down the rest of the southern zone. And
did you cross over like at Paso Canoas?
Yeah, went to Paso Canoas and went over there and then went to Boquete in Panama and stayed there for a week or whatever. Really love that. Beautiful little town up in the mountains in Panama. Easy to get to, but just you get on the Costa Rica and you're leaving sort of Hako and you're driving, and I think the green, the incredible lushness of the jungle, which I didn't see anywhere else in Costa Rica except for that southern zone. And even though I knew nothing of any of the communities, any of the little towns, Dominical and Uvita and whatever, there's so many, right? Mm-hmm. Not really knowing anything about any of them, but just thought, wow, I could see myself living in this part of the country.
Right.
And so that was trip number 2. So it was kind of, I could see myself sort of living here, again, went back home to, continue being an adult and being responsible. And then came back down for the 3rd time. And it was like, well, I think I'm going to just see what's available. So, drive into these little towns. I guess the first one I hit was probably Dominical. Mm-hmm. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to go in here. I'm going to talk to a real estate agent. I just want to see what's available. And that led to the purchase of the property that I now have here in Uvita.
Nice. So tell me, first of all, about your house, about your property.
My house. Well, I bought a piece of dirt. So there wasn't really much here. You couldn't actually even drive onto the property when I got it. The real estate agent brought a very young and energetic Tico fella with him with a machete who actually cut a path in to the property so that we could get a sense of it.
So how big is that property?
I think I'm sitting at around 3 acres.
Okay, nice.
So I'm up near the top of I call it a hill. It's not really a mountain. I'm at the top of the hill in sort of Las Brisas neighborhood, and I've got a very long strip of land, which is about a little over 3 acres. I'm not 100% sure. Can't remember. And so, we put an offer in, they accepted it. I went home and I'm selling things at home and I'm buying a piece of property here in Costa Rica. And I'm like, okay, I don't really know what I'm doing. So.
Okay. So you go back, so I get it 100%. So you go back home, and did you have a home in Canada that you needed to sell?
Well, I was a custom home builder in Canada, so I actually had to finish a couple of projects that I was working on. Plus, I did have real estate that I had to sell myself that for my home. I didn't sell all of the assets. I mean, I still have a couple rental properties back home, but for the most part, closed up shop and sold everything off, and came down here and decided I was going to build myself a little, cabina in the jungle.
Okay, so you come with a level of experience that most people who are making the trek don't have, right? Because you were a custom builder. So when you came down, did you build your own home? Did you like go, I'm going to do this myself? And then how did you go about that if you did in a foreign country?
Right. You would think that somebody with my skill set, and since I've worked in the construction industry for, I'm not even going to tell you how many decades now, because it makes me even sound older than I am. So I did a lot of commercial and institutional construction. I did a lot of custom home building back home, but I knew that I was in a foreign country.
Mm-hmm.
And just because I know my industry and I know it very well from North America, I've worked in the United States. I've worked all the way across Canada. I thought, you know what? I think I need to just come down here and suss things out, I guess would be a way to put it. So once I had the land cleared and could actually see what it was, I did bring in some heavy equipment. I used to be an equipment operator back home. So I spent 3 weeks doing all of the site work, prep work, excavation on the site.
So you could rent heavy equipment in Costa Rica?
Yeah, which is great. They do have cat rentals here, which is all over the United States. And so, yeah, I rented I think it was a 320 excavator, had it delivered, and I did all the site clearing myself. It was a better way for me to get a better understanding of also the property and the fact that I needed to design specifically for the property. Right. So I did that. Then I started working on concept and design that I wanted for me. I took that back home, and I had my designers and my engineers complete the drawings. Came back to Costa Rica. I know this is a long story, but I'm trying to make it short.
You're good. There are people who are like considering this, and the details are important to them. Like, what did that look like? And they go, I just built a house. Okay, well, there was a lot of shit that went into just building a house. You didn't just like do whatever. Like, yeah, you looked at a piece of land, like you bought a piece of jungle, and you couldn't even see what the earth below it looked like. So that part of it that you did was so important to know. How did the land grade? Where was that going to run? How do I need to?
And yes, very important actually for the piece of property that I have, because I'm actually on a ridge. So my property slopes down on both sides. Wow. So there was things that I needed to take into consideration, but I wanted an ocean view, and I didn't want to be too far away from the Costanera. I'm literally 3 minutes from the Costanera Highway. I know your mountain ridge. I know it. Yeah. So I decided I needed to design a custom home that was going to fit for this property. I put all that together, and then when I came back, I tried to interview as many builders or people who had been building here. And I don't want to say builders, because they may represent in such a way, but not necessarily are. And the reason I say that is because I come from a very structured and very regulated industry. Right. Okay. You can't build a doghouse in North America without a structural engineer, a geotechnical engineer, an actual architect, an electrical engineer. I can go on. They don't have that here. Right. They have a system whereby they have an architect who is the sole professional. He's he's the one person who's sort of got some certification with CIFA, which is the local board of representatives for construction here in Costa Rica.
Mm-hmm.
And the industry itself is completely unregulated. There
Mm-hmm.
are no licensed tradespeople. There are no licensed contractors. There are no protections for consumers, I guess is one way to put it. But that being said, I also knew that I didn't understand the building industry in Costa Rica. So I interviewed, probably, like I said, I brought my drawings and I interviewed 10 prospective builders and went from there. However, after seeing what I saw and after interviewing these people, I was absolutely horrified that there are so many people from North America, the UK, who are coming here, and they're just not getting what they need to be getting. I mean, people are investing hundreds of thousands of dollars with no assurances that anything is even done right.
Right. Because, they're transferring the trust that they have for the builders they have in their country to these people. It's a transference of trust that has not been earned.
Yeah. And there's no basis for it.
Right.
I would have a European, I'd have a builder from Germany build me a house in a heartbeat. I'm skeptical of builders in North America. So, and I used to be part of them. I am extremely reluctant. And I've been here now going on almost 4 years. So 3 years, a little more than 3 years. And I've been doing a number of projects. I've found some very good people to work with, but for the most part, what you're getting when you hire a builder in Costa Rica is the uneducated managing the unskilled.
Right. It's true.
And you, as the client, are footing the bill. You're stuck with whatever. And that is, to me, that's just not the way it should be. So that kind of got me doing what I'm doing.
Right. And so at some point, like, you did it, you picked up one, you picked up another, you did whatever. And then at some point you went, I think I'm in business in Costa Rica. Right. Well, that's how it happened. Like, you were like, I didn't really plan this, but this looks like this is what I'm doing.
Yeah. And you meet people and you're talking on the beach and, everybody wants to know, what did you do?
Right.
Because we all know that you don't do anything here in Costa Rica.
Right.
So everybody wants to know what you did. And so I said, well, I was a construction manager. I was a custom home builder. And the minute you let people know what skill set you had at home, they're curious. They want to know. And I thought, I've got to find a way to try and get some of the knowledge and information that I have about what is happening here. And there has been a bit of a construction boom in Costa Rica in the last,
especially where you're at. I mean, that
4 or 5 years.
Yeah. In Uvita, it's been exploding. Right?
And we see it all over the place. And I could tell you story after story after story about things that have gone wrong for people. That's not what I'm here to do. And I don't want to do that, but right. It's a cautionary tale. And I don't understand. So, I'm trying to present my knowledge and my history and my skill set so that other people can get a quality built product. If you're going to invest $500,000 in a vacation home, it'd be nice if it was still standing after the earthquake.
That would be nice. So then let's talk about real quick. Have you developed a crew there? So you have a crew of people that work for you?
Yes, I do. I have 4, and I would like to call them superintendents. They're Ticos. They speak English. They speak Spanish. Who have been working with me.
And are they coachable? Like, you can go in and train them the way that you want them to do it, not?
Yes, it's taken some time to establish the process. Ticos are very proud people.
Right.
They don't take, it's not criticism. I'm going to say feedback. And they also don't take direction well. for the most part. They believe that, this, and I heard this from even builders that I interviewed, and they said, well, this is how we do it here. And I said, okay, and I appreciate that, but you're asking me to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, and in order for me to do that, I need to have a certain level of trust and comfort, and I'm not getting that.
Right.
Right.
And I think that follow-up question is like, I understand that's how you do it here. Are you open to seeing another way?
Yeah. And I mean, very simple things right from the beginning, so part of that is transparency. The other part of it is knowing where that money's going. They have a process here where they work all week, and then come Friday, you need to hand over a handful of cash and pay them. And then they'll just go back to work on Monday. And this is their system of operations. Okay. They've never seen a formal change order. They've never seen a cost plan. If you ever talk to a builder down here, the first thing they're going to say is, well, your cost per square meter, okay, and or square foot is going to be X amount of money.
Right.
Okay. As somebody who's done cost estimating and quantitative surveys of construction projects, I can have two buildings that are exactly the same design. It's the exact same house, exact same building, and both of those will cost extremely different amounts of money.
Depending on finishes, depending on anything.
It's fit and finish, it's foundation, it's how is the building even constructed.
Right.
Right. And a lot of the things
that's so logical, right? It's so logical because like the house that I want, the 1,400 square foot house that I want is going to be different than the 1,400 square foot house you want.
Absolutely. You have different tile that you want. You have different bathroom fixtures you want. You have different doors. You have different glass. Not only that, depending on where your house is, and because you don't like to feel the windows rattle every time there's an earthquake here in Costa Rica, which is pretty much daily, okay, you're going to want your house built to a higher standard, right? And this kind of goes back to even building codes. There is no actual formal documented building code that I have been able to find in Costa Rica. And when I ask people what they're building to, oftentimes they will say that they are building to a building code from Southern California. And I said, okay, can you give me a copy of that building code? Okay.
Right.
And I can't speak specifically to the United States, but in Canada, there are building codes for every individual province, as I'm sure there is for each individual state.
There is.
And within that state, there is also individual codes based on location. Okay. The San Francisco building code is completely different from the one that's
San Diego.
Yeah. Yes.
Absolutely.
So this is the thing. You don't even know how they're building your building. Beyond fit and fit.
What people don't understand too, like, so I have two sons that are union electricians, and they have to pass a test in each state because each state has different electrical code guidelines, and some of them have reciprocity because they recognize that they have the same codes, right? So you may pass a test in Oklahoma, and that's good for, Missouri, Iowa, and another state. They all have reciprocity, but then you get into some other states, like they're in Washington right now, and their Washington code book is like 1,000,000 times different than the test that they've already passed. And so when what Darren's talking about is that different areas, like if, for example, as it should be, and we hate to be the North Americans that are coming down telling the Central Americans how to do business, but we're just like going, this is what we're used to, and this is the reality. Like, how can we meet somewhere in the middle and still deliver a good product without going, oh, we're gonna change everything you guys do because you're all wrong. Yeah. But like building in Guanacaste should be different than building in an area where there is a lot of volcanic activity and a lot of earthquake activity and a lot of structural stuff that happens all the time. Like, are you building to that? Or are you building out somewhere where you're in a flat land and the house is not going to have the same experience in Guanacaste as it has in Uvita or Oachal?
Yeah. And, just to expand on that a little bit, people forget there are 27 microclimates in Costa Rica, which means every one of those areas that you build in requires something different from the structure that you're building. And, just to, comment on codes and the electrical code and business codes in general, all of the codes that we have are the basic allowable minimum.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This is not best practice. This is not maybe even the most advanced technology that could be used to build whatever it is that you're building. This is the minimum that the government of the governments in, the particular state, province, or country will allow you to build to. They don't even have those minimum standards here, which is a little scary. And they base everything on an architect. And it's, nothing against architects. I quite like them for the most part, but they cannot be everywhere and manage everything and do everything at once. So
now that you have ventured into this world of, holy crap, now I'm this responsible adult in Costa Rica. I'm not just a visitor. And I'm building homes. How many homes have you built so far?
I think we did a half a dozen last year, and I have scheduled this year. I have 6 more scheduled for this year coming up. So we're beginning the design phase mostly.
Yeah, like range, like in size from this to that. Like the 6 that you did last year. Tell me about them. Tell me about like what they kind of ranged.
So I'll do it probably in terms of a dollar range more than square footage because so they ranged anywhere. I think our low end, a couple of them were around the $250,000 range. Very small little casitas built on some relatively easy property. And we've also done a couple of, million plus homes. And most of the things that we have slotted for right now. And again, I think a lot of this has come down not so much to the construction end of it, but, you're looking at 4-bedroom, 4 bathrooms, swimming pool, covered parking, and you're looking at a build cost of between $700,000 and $800,000. And if it's on an ocean view lot, that can also change the building cost based on what you need to do structurally and foundation wise.
Understood. Well, I mean, I love that. I mean, I think I love it for you if you're happy that you've dove back into this again, or maybe you feel like it's your obligation. Like, I see something and I need to correct this.
Well, I think what it is for me is I don't like seeing people, and I guess this goes back to some of the stories that people have told me. I know a lady from Seattle, and I'm going to share this one story with you. She spent $1.2 million to build her house in Oachal, which is a little more south of Uvita, in a beautiful area. She had an amazing site. 1.2 million, I think, for most of us is a relatively significant amount of money. And this house looked good. And I mean, if you were buying it on how it looked, it was great. And this is probably not a best expression, but it was my lipstick on a pig. Okay. It might have looked good. She moved in after completion. Within the first 3 weeks of her living in the house, the septic system backed up into the entire house. The roof leaked the minute she had a rain. Her gas piping had a leak in it somewhere and was bleeding propane gas into the house the entire time that she was in it. So thankfully she doesn't smoke. The wood doors, and you can probably see a wood frame door behind me. Mm-hmm. It was not constructed properly. And like my door behind me, it has glass in it. All of her doors blew apart because the wood shrank. And in the middle of the night, all the doors were popping and cracking and blowing the glass out of them in the middle of the night as she was sleeping. So she thought she was actually being invaded. And I guess she was, but it was from the glass.
What recourse did she have?
And, the only recourse for her is to go back to the builder and say, hey, you need to come back and fix this. And, the warranty process here on things like that are what I would call a taillight warranty. As soon as the taillights are out of view, so is your warranty. There is really no legal recourse. Builders are, like I said, the builders are not licensed. They're not insured. You are taking all of this on at your own risk. And, I did an inspection of her house prior to her moving into it. I could see problems, but it's very difficult to tell a friend of yours that they just spent $1.2 million on something that is going to cause them problems. And I said, there's a few things that I'm just going to point out, because maybe you should tell your builder before you give him his final payment that he should, look at that. And mostly it had to do with the roof. And I get the impression that whatever I told them to repair was ignored. And it's very disheartening. And that also doesn't include the fact that her pool cracked and broke and was leaking down the side of the mountain. She's now in a situation, the rework has cost her probably close to another $100,000. And there's been so many of these that if I can help anybody avoid.
Right.
Okay. I'm not saying that there aren't people here who can build a quality house. There are. They need to be monitored.
Right. They need some oversight.
They need to make sure that the people who are watching them and they're doing things that need to be done in a way that is going to, for the betterment of the building. And there's just not enough oversight.
Right. And I think about, like, in the States, like on any new construction, there are phases in the build where a building inspector has to come in and check when you're at this point, before you sheetrock those walls, they're going to check everything that the plumbing and the electrical that's inside those walls. They're going to be checking that. Do not sheetrock those walls before you get that signed off on, because you're going to be tearing sheetrock back out. And they're there for a reason, because, like, once you cover that up and we can't see whether you did it right, could cost somebody their life.
Yes.
Not only their home, it could cost them their life. And so that's what this are in place for. Not just, I mean, getting crappy work is bad enough, but if you got crappy work that burned your house to the ground.
Well, you're dealing with systems, and people, we just kind of ignore them and we take them for granted. And like you said, you have to take a moisture meter to all wood framed houses prior to sheetrocking. And if it's higher than 12% moisture, you cannot sheet that building. The amount of mold that would grow inside your building would be phenomenal. I mean, I built net zero homes. We built R2000 back in the day, right? We've been building energy conscious homes in North America now for a couple of decades. And it's a different process, and they're different environments. The homes we're building in Seattle and in Vancouver and on Vancouver Island are completely different than the homes that we're building in Southern California. And again, the homes that we're building in Costa Rica, again, need to be built for the microclimate that they're in.
Exactly.
We get tremendous amount of rain here in a very short period of time. I've seen, we're putting in perimeter drainage and site drainage on buildings that we build, and people are asking me, what are you doing and why are you doing that?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm controlling the water flow, right?
And the erosion that's going to happen.
And exactly. And the erosion of the bank. And, I do double mats of rebar in my concrete slabs, which they don't understand. This is standard building practices in North America.
Mm-hmm.
But it costs too much money. So the TICOs here don't see that. Like they see that as just an added expense that's not required. Vapor barriers. I'm hitting some really simple points here. Putting a vapor barrier underneath your concrete slab to prevent moisture from coming up through the concrete, they don't get that. They don't understand it. you're not going to build an airtight house here because you don't want one. You need the airflow here.
100%.
Right? But so you need to design your house with cross ventilation. You need to make sure that things are designed for airflow.
Do you build on slab?
I don't necessarily build anything on slab because most of the stuff that I build does have a foundation or is on piers or micropiles, depending on the site. But I have a lot of my property. Both of my houses on my property have what I call slab on grade interior.
Okay.
But they have footing and foundations on the perimeter and on the exterior of the building.
Gotcha. Okay, so I know that this is a lot. This is your passion, because like when I talk about the stuff I'm passionate about, I'm like I can go on forever about it too. What do you think like the next few years looks like? Like, you feel like this is going to be like a new career move for you? Like, you probably came down there to kind of chill and relax and not do this. So how long do you feel like you're going to continue in this path?
Well, I've also come to terms with the fact that I'm much happier when I have a project.
I hear
Okay?
you. I know, because I keep thinking like I'm going to go down and can chill. I'm like, oh no, I'll probably do it in a couple of weeks. And I'll be like, okay, I want to do something. What do I do?
Well, I think I've tried retirement a couple of times and I'm failing at it miserably. I can only go to the golf course so often before I lose my enthusiasm, which generally happens after about the first 2 holes of the game.
I'm sure.
It's just not who I am. Honestly, as long as I am capable and people are willing to listen to what I have to say, I will keep doing this as much as I can. I think I have a responsibility to try and help people get a quality product. And I want to try and help the Ticos learn how to build better buildings, not only for themselves, but, for their clients, and sort of bring some of that. And I'm not saying that everything that we're doing in North America is right.
Correct.
Okay. But
if you could come and elevate what they're doing now to a next level and go, okay, here's my legacy. I took a subpar part of the building experience, and I spent the time building these superintendents out and teaching them a better way. And we've elevated some of the building practices in the southern zone of Costa Rica.
Yeah.
We do not feel like, okay, that's part of my legacy.
And that is a part of it. Absolutely, for sure. And I will say that, with my company that I've started down here, Eco Builders Costa Rica, I'm a firm believer in sustainability. And this started when I was in university as an outward bound instructor. It's hard to run a wilderness program when there's no wilderness.
For sure.
Okay. I've come to the conclusion, as somebody who works in an industry that is extremely devastating to the planet, 30% of all of the destruction of natural resources goes into buildings. Okay, we're the biggest polluter. We're the biggest detriment to society in terms of our environmental damage. And I think that building better products, but also teaching people there are ways to do this sustainably so that you can have sustainable comfort. I like to say that I build sustainable luxury.
Do you do stick built?
The only stick build construction that we do generally is when we're doing red iron steel frame. So especially when you're doing some higher, very steep construction, we'll do a structural steel frame and then we'll infill that with steel stud. But we don't do a lot of that. Anything that I can do that's more of on a ground level or even able. I'm a big builder with, I was saying concrete block, but we're moving to hemp block, and we're hemp block, hempcrete. We're doing a lot of that. It's just way more sustainable, and it offers the same tolerance and lifespan and structural reinforcement that you get from standard concrete. So
it's readily available.
It's becoming readily available. Right now, I'm importing most of my hemp products out of the United States. because the manufacturing is there. Costa Rica just issued 5 licenses for industrial hemp production in the country that I'm aware of, but they're not doing the fiber. Most of what they're doing in terms of hemp production has to do with medical and medicinal purposes, but it would be nice to see them starting to create the fiber so that we could see some actual hempcrete production here in the country.
That sounds like it's pricey. Is it, importing hemp block?
Well, yes, I'm not going to lie. There is a cost implication to it. Yes, there is. And not so much for the product. It's more to do with the importation. And we used to, one of the hemp projects I did, there's a hemp block company in Alberta in Canada who has structurally engineered hemp blocks that are already fabricated. They ship down here and you put them together. They're like Lego. They're amazing. However, the import tax and the cost to import from Canada to Costa Rica makes it cost prohibitive. So I can get raw fiber out of the United States for a fraction of the cost. And because I'm importing just a raw fiber that isn't manufactured into anything, the cost of that importation and the import tax on that is actually quite low. So
then you bring that in, and then you have to figure out the
we would make the hempcrete right on site.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, it'll be nice to see as that progresses, to see that, change the forefront of concrete building in Costa Rica.
Yeah. I mean, you still need structural steel. I mean, we've got one project where they were actually toying with the idea of using the bamboo versus the steel, because bamboo actually has the same tensile strength that steel does. It just needs to be in a higher diameter. But for slabs, there's no reason why we can't use properly treated epoxy coated bamboo to replace steel.
Right. Love it.
Yeah. So there's a lot of development in that area that I find quite exciting and hope to explore further.
Well, Darren, I appreciate the time that we've spent together. And as we get ready we'll be down in December, as we get ready to start considering building, I will absolutely hit you up and have you come, because we haven't even looked at builders yet. We just literally have to go in and look at the land and go, what is our best use for this? We have 13 acres. What is our best use of this land and how we want it to be laid out? And it's funny because you talk about sustainability and leaving the land as it is as much as possible. Our neighbor to the south, I believe he's to the south of us, came in and bought this parcel of land. It's probably equal to about the size of ours. And then he came in and just scraped it clean. And it's on the side of a mountain. It's on Tower, what they call it, Tower Road. We're about 1,000 elevation. And I mean, his property is like bald now. Like his erosion is going to be horrible. I mean, he pushed all the trees and he scraped the top level of everything. It's all just like red clay dirt now. And I'm like, oh my God, why did he do that?
He probably doesn't really know what he's doing.
Yeah.
He's causing himself probably a lot more problems down the road. I'm fortunate that I have 2 architects that I work with through us. So we start with people right from the day we'll even, offer our input in terms of buying the land. So we come out, we do the site studies. I just finished one last week. And like I said, we've got six projects in the design phase right now, hoping to start when the rains stop.
I love it. And so then is there like a variable price for a site study, or is there a fixed price? We're going to come out and look at it. We're going to give you this. Like, is there, or is like, we'll come and tell you, I don't even know, like for a site study, what the price ranges are for those. We haven't even started.
In Costa Rica, you cannot get a building permit without having a registered architect with CIFA. Okay. They are the only design professional who can actually pull a building permit in the country. And their general charge out rates vary between 8% and 10% of what they estimate the build cost to be. So that being said, if you were building their projected cost of a $300,000 home, they're going to charge you $30,000 in fees to provide them with a set of drawings. I find that to be absolutely insane. Okay. I have a problem with that.
I agree.
So, well, why am I paying one design professional? And I'm going to emphasize one. Okay. I'm not talking about an entire committee or team.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about one individual, and this person wants me to pay them 10% to provide me with a set of drawings. I work with 2 architects here, and because we have people in-house who do almost all the legwork, we do the design with the client.
Mm-hmm.
I pay them a licensing fee. They review the drawings after I've submitted them, and they file. I'm able to cut design costs for people by 50%.
Okay.
So and what we do is we come out, we do a site study. We talk to you about what you want. One of the other things that we try to incorporate is getting people to understand and realize, what do you want in terms of sustainability in your house? Solar backup systems. As you know, the electrical system here is shady and iffy at best. It goes out on a very regular basis. As I had 2 little power outages this morning before I was trying to get my coffee made. The water system, the infrastructure in the whole of Costa Rica is progressively, it's building, but it's not up to any functioning standard. Power goes out regularly. Water can often be out for days. So we incorporate a lot of systems in our construction and our projects to help people live almost off grid. We're doing rainwater harvesting, solar hot water, solar power. We do direct solar drives on a lot of things so that you're not requiring to buy a $20,000 solar system.
I love that, because like the property that we purchased, there is no power to it. And for ISE to bring power to it would be several $100,000.
Yep.
And so we know that besides the fact that we're okay with solar, we know that we'll have more consistency. Obviously, we want to have that power coming in, going out. And
Yeah.
What people don't understand is that the havoc that those power surges wreak on your electronics.
Yes.
And if you think about it, your refrigerator is an electronic.
Yes.
Washer is electronic. And those power surges with that disturbed electrical flow all the time is horrible.
It causes a tremendous amount of damage. Every project that we build, I install a battery backup system of 3.5 kilowatts to prevent a lot of that from happening, as well as our panels are all surge protected at the panel. The other thing that I do, which they don't understand, is I have GFI, ground fault indicator receptacles, in bathrooms. I have them in kitchens. I have them in bedrooms. And these are things that people don't understand. And you're right. And particularly when it comes to refrigerators, right? That causes a lot of damage. Your television set.
Yep.
Not that watching TV is important to some of us, but for other people, you go out and you spend $1,000 on a TV, you're going to get 2 power surges here. And guess what? Your $1,000 TV is now a boat anchor.
Yep, for sure.
And that's, your microwave, right? Your wireless speaker, your security camera system,
everything has electronics built into it. And so anything that you're plugging in, I mean, there's even your stove, right? Any of those things have an electronic component built into them. And now you're at the mercy of ISE.
Yep. And the damage it does, there's no protection here for that. And I caution people when I do a project for them and they say, look, we need to do this. And this,
right.
It's not that I want you to spend the extra $5,000 for this 3.5 kilowatt battery backup system, but trust me, the day you don't have to replace your fridge or throw everything out that was in it, you'll thank me.
For sure. And a lot of people they're like, oh, I have a surge protector extension cord. And what they
Yes.
don't understand is that you may not see it. Even in here in the States, you don't see the surges that happen on constantly. Like it may not affect you visually, but it's happening all the time. And that any good electrician will tell you that after 6 months, throw that away and get a new one because it
Yes.
isn't working for you anymore.
Correct.
And they'll have them for decades. The same plug-in that they think is a surge protector extension cord. Like I have one right now that's hooked all of this. I have like 8 things that can plug into it. And we've got a date on them. We know that when we bought them because I have an office full of iMacs, right? I don't have the luxury of like having to be like, oh my God, that just blew my Mac. And so we have dates on them so that we know that in 6 months, we're going to replace those with new ones because they are ineffective anymore. So being able to have that built into the home would like be such a relief to your mind to go, I don't have to worry about this. But solar for us is going to be the way anyways.
Yeah. And I try to put solar into every project that I do. A lot of people don't want to spend the amount of money it costs for a 10.5 kilowatt system. I mean, for your place, you're going to need at least that, probably larger. But you can also reduce your battery requirements by getting a lot of direct drive pumps, fans, because now when the solar is out with a direct drive, you're feeding that direct drive pool pump directly. No battery, no inverter, and it doesn't need to run 24 hours a day. Right? So I tend to put like my pool pumps are both direct drive solar panel powered.
Nice.
When the sun's out, pool pump's on. When the sun goes down, the pool pump's off.
Nice.
And that's good enough. I don't need it to run 24 hours a day.
Anyway, this house that I came down one time for a friend of mine. I was dog sitting, and they had a pool that was enclosed completely. Like it was, I mean, it had screens around it, but the whole thing was covered, which I didn't see the point of. But I mean, for myself, for someone else, they may just absolutely love that. But I didn't. But the water was like warm, and then it just kept getting warmer. And then I went and looked, and they had their water pump was pumping the water up onto the roof, and it was heating it, and then it was coming it back down into. And I'm sure during the colder months, that's probably a really great thing. So after a couple of days of like getting in this warm bath water of a pool, and I was like, hang on, I bet if I turn that pump off during the sunny hours and then I only cycle that pump in the evening, like I'm not going to have that bat. So I would just whenever I would get done walking the dogs at night, like at like 4 o'clock when I would walk them, I would go and turn the pool pump on then. And I would let it cycle at night, and then I'd get up in the morning to walk the dogs, and I would turn that thing off. And I was like, I was happy, but I was like, oh my, I was literally out there going, I know they don't have a heater on this. What the hell is happening here? Why is this, what? And you could feel it coming out of the jets hot.
Yeah.
Like if I would be in the pool like at 11 a.m. and I was like, why is that blowing hot water in here? And now I'm just out there investigating because I'm on the side of this mountain. I was up in Tres Rios. And I'm like, they're just investigating, going, where is the water coming from? Because I have a pool here at the state. So I'm like, where is it coming from? I was like, why is that pumping up to there? And I'm like, it's acting like solar because it's running through this pipe that's running up on the roof. It was heating it at that point. I was like, oh man, that's too hot for me.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate all of your information. Anybody who's looking anybody who's looking to build a sustainable home in Costa Rica and done to North American standards as much as you can in a developing country. I don't like to call Costa Rica a third world country. It's a developing country. I would say to look Darren up. I'm going to drop all the links to be able to contact him in the show notes below. And obviously he has shared his expertise with us today. And I'm in that phase of my life. So this is all very fascinating to me, because as we make a decision, to move forward with this property that we purchased, that still is just bare land right now. It's beautiful, has a view of the ocean, overlooks the marina in Golfito, and lovely sunset views. And like, we want to do the right thing by that land. We want to have it positioned properly and have everything just to, I like, there's very little clearing I even want to do. I love everything as it is. There's already cleared spots for us. There's cleared spots that would be great for solar, to even have a solar bank if we needed it in there. So we're super excited about that. And I look forward to connecting to you once we're in country full time and ready to start a project, Darren. So thank you for giving us your time and your expertise today.
Oh, my pleasure. And your project sounds very, very exciting. And, you know, there's just little things that can be done. And like I said, you know, we want to be comfortable. And there's no reason for us to not have sustainable comfort and luxury. And we don't need to spend a boatload of money in order to get it.
Right. 100%. All right. For everybody looking to move to Costa Rica, we hope we've given you enough good information today that filled in a gap of the knowledge that you had before coming here. I know building a home can be scary, and purchasing an existing one can be just as frightening and overwhelming, because it's like buying a used car. Sometimes you just don't know what you're getting. But I think that Darren has added some really good information for us today, and take it. And on your journey to make Costa Rica your home, we hope that we have added to that today. So have a great day, and pura vida, Darren.
Pura vida.